Welcome back. This is the podcast Truth and Illusion with your host, Christian Fanli and Katie Curiosa.
Welcome to the pre-read for episode 4 of Truth and Illusion. In this episode, we cover everything from taking a $2,000 suit and using it as a floor rag, to even talking about the dark night of the soul from the Christian mystic, St. John of the Cross, and how we can confront the feeling of nothingness or emptiness as it's commonly described. So we go a lot of places in this episode. Some places we go deeper than others, but I'm sure there's something in here that will appeal to you or disgust you in some way. So welcome.
I fall asleep. Can't settle too much. Don't want to settle in too terribly.
It's like 2 hours later, we both took a nap. Well, that's that.
Transcending all reality, or you are flat out asleep.
Cool. So I haven't put together a draft of this next talk, but it'd be great to talk about what we think we want to talk about. I could bring open the doc. I did have a rough idea, but I also want to share, talk about the last episode, and where we might want to go from there.
Cool.
So the last episode, we talked about intimacy. We talked about impermanence. I think we could have got into, we could have got into impermanence a bit more, but I don't think it would be a whole new episode for that. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's hard to know how much you have to say on any given topic, but I'm sure we could put it towards something else. I mean, if it's a combination of things, I mean, if it's something you want to touch upon, but you don't think it will take a full episode, I'm sure you could fold it into something else.
Right. Interesting. So one thing I was thinking about, so I was talking with Nathan, who you met, and who attends and listens to the podcast. And we were talking about depression. And I was trying to look back and see if my experience with depression, which was kind of we gently went over it after, living with the celebrity. The year after, I think, was like a huge, most crippling, depressive phase of my life. And I haven't seen anything like that since. So much so it was like so difficult to just get up and go to the restroom. I don't know how much we talked about it. How much did we cover that?
I don't think I know much about that. I don't know how it actually ended up coming to an end. I don't know much about the specifics around that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how fast you joined IDO. I don't know how fast that was. So
right.
I don't know.
So I joined, right. So the celebrity was 2014 to 2016. 2000, I guess it was almost 2013 to 2016. And then IDEA was 2017.
Okay, so the year between was...
I was working at another company, and I was like getting myself back into a functional person.
I heard about you moving out and moving into an apartment and being like, oh, I can't pay this rent. I remember hearing that.
Right.
I didn't quite know how it all connected.
Right. Yeah. I think one part that's interesting is when we're asking, because Nathan had also talked about experiencing bouts of depression. And I'm labeling that very informally. That's
right.
Not like a clinically diagnosed. I'm just saying it as a description.
in your practice, I mean, I know that you're not a Buddhist per se, but like, is there a term? It seems like that would have come up, like one of their translated terms that's like emptiness, or is there like some word that means like the dark places or the deep sorrow, or it just seems like there should be something, because
interesting.
I feel like in those moments, I mean, I've had some depression, which I'm not sure if it was really clinical or just very sad times, but I remember actually feeling like I just don't get why everybody, I'm not saying that I want to die or that I think everyone else should die, but I'm kind of confused. Why are we doing this? Like, we're all just doing it. Right. People get up and do their routine and like check off the boxes and talk to who they need to talk to and call mom and whatever it is. And it's not that there's no value in it. I just want to understand, like, why are we all going along with this? Right. And my mom was like, oh my God, you want to die. I got to get you to talk to somebody. No, I'm just saying I don't understand. And I think, I still don't understand that. I mean, I like a lot of stuff. Like, it's easy to get up when you're like, find things amusing, or, you know, you enjoy the simple pleasures and stuff. It wasn't that I couldn't enjoy anything. It was just like, boy, this is a pretty bullshit thing, and we're all afraid of dying. But what the hell is this? So I don't know if there's a word, a word that means like that kind of distance, because I know part of it, what sounds like enlightenment is being able to observe. Right. But I don't think that was really the right kind. It was more of a kind of dead end. Like, I wouldn't say totally nihilistic, but like definitely like, I just don't, no one's questioning this. It was kind of so discouraging. There's like a discouraged state.
Interesting.
So I don't know if that's a thing.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
I'm so enlightened. I have distance from these day-to-day trivial matters. No, it was more like, this is discouraging.
Yeah, right. But I think there's something called fundamental darkness. And I don't know much.
Fundamental darkness.
Yeah, and I don't know much about it because I haven't read much. There doesn't seem to be many. I guess I haven't seeked out a lot of the depression literature or liturgy around Zen or Buddhist or any non-dual traditions, but I'd be very curious to see what that is. So there is this thing that's called in this Nichiren, which is called, it's still an ignorance, which doesn't feel, which this person equates to being like depression. Fundamental ignorance or primal ignorance, the most deeply rooted illusion inherent in life, said to give rise to all other illusions. Darkness, in the sense, means the inability to see or recognize the truth. Yeah, I actually think we could call it like a bad interpretation of emptiness, right? Then going towards the nihilistic.
Right.
In this, like in all of these books that I have here,
like this book. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the title is Entry to the Middle Way. Uh-huh. And the whole reason, and there's a bunch of stuff about the middle way is considered within the Mahayana and the Zen, which Zen is part of what's called the Mahayana tradition. And what you have basically three vehicles in Buddhism. People split it differently. I'm just giving you the general one. The first one is the Hinayana, and it's like self-liberation focused. Mahayana is supposed to be like the compassionate, freer of all beings. So you have this will towards society to actually help society. And then the third one is like the Vajrayana, which is supposed to be like the fastest will. The fastest vehicle, which is in this in the Mahayana, saving other people is just as important as saving yourself. In the Hinayana, it's just saving yourself. She's like,
that's hard enough.
Right. I actually think it's totally valid school. And yeah. And there's many Hinayanists in Mahayana, of course, people trying to liberate themselves. And then the Tantric or Vajrayana is much more...
all sex. Just all tantric sex all day.
Yes.
Different way to get there.
Yes, different way to get there. It's terrible.
Ask Sting. He's got to figure it out.
Yeah, they do some really interesting stuff. Like a lot of the visualization techniques. So because they see reality as dreamlike, they said, okay, you can actually go faster, get there faster, to enlightenment faster if you use these techniques. So they are usually, and this is a stereotype of them, they used to be on the charnel grounds, where the dead bodies were and just laid out, and back when there wasn't a really good system for burying people and just being with their remains and like meditating and
wait, was it just piles of decomposing bodies, like not buried?
Right. Charnel.
What?
Yeah.
This seems like a Black Plague kind of invitation. Like, go there and what?
Right. Yeah. So it's almost like they
I don't want to do it this way.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because you could say that the Zen is just, you're just sitting, right? And a lot of the practice is sitting and doing work and being 100% with that work. I would say a very generic explanation of Vajrayana is you're actually bringing pain onto oneself or bringing challenging situations to you. There's, speaking of the sexual side, there's a deity practice where you practice visually with your consort. It could be a very long meditation, it could be 6 hours where you're, because you want to understand desire, so you're visualizing yourself having sex in crazy ways, right? In whatever ways that help you. And there's various instructions on how to do it, but their practice is they're confronting it, right? They're bringing the stuff to them. They're going to the charnel grounds. They're thinking about their death. And of course, a lot of this cuts across, there's Zen practitioners that do that too. But if we just look at it really generically, you have the Zen where you're sitting and you're like, all my problems will eventually come up just by sitting here. I don't need to provoke any trauma.
I don't just sit amongst the corpses to get in touch with, I fucked this work.
Right, yeah.
I got it. I got plenty to work with.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, yeah.
I don't understand the movement that believes that you're supposed to save others. I mean, it seems very noble, but that to me seems so externalized. Again, how would you not place value in their reaction to your guidance and like their acceptance of what you're offering would then feed your ego or not feed your ego? It just feels it feels counterintuitive that any Zen practice, I mean, maybe I just don't understand. Yeah. I think it's noble. I mean, I get why they want there to be teachers, and I mean, if you didn't have that impulse to help others, you would just keep it to yourself. But I just find that very strange.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a tension, and I think it can be even. I mean, I guess all of the vehicles have their pros and cons. I guess they're not really comparable. But if you take like the yogic path, right, and you're like, I'm going to go and do a bunch of yoga with myself and just reach realization myself. Some Mahayanists would say that in Vajrayana or the Mahayana 3 requirements, or the 2 early requirements is called renunciation, bodhicitta, and the third one is emptiness. And part of that within the bodhicitta is like this. I mean, I guess it can be like a sub of compassion, is that once you realize that, reality isn't what it seems, and then you realize you're under delusion, and then you realize your mom is under the same delusion, and then you start realizing that all these beings are out there under delusion, and they have these things called bodhisattvas, which are like kind of like you could say like heroes of the Mahayana path. And there's one bodhisattva named Guan Yin, and it's like a she, he, it doesn't really have a gender. Hears all the cries of the world, cannot stop hearing it, and so much so that its head exploded in this like mythic story about it. And then it was granted, I forget how many arms, but just hundreds of arms. So if you ever see like a Buddhist statue with lots of arms on both sides, all the way down with different like trinkets in each of the arms, this is a Guan Yin, and it's this idea of saving all beings. I'm going to not go into full enlightenment. I'm going to go into partial or whatever enlightenment so I can save all beings. And I'm going to stay here for as long as I can to help others rather than just saving myself.
And so all the arms are meant so that help can be given to everyone. You think got a new head, right? Because it's not a headless many arms statue.
No, got a new head.
That's good. Got to get the new head involved. There's one from you, and you look like with all these arms, and you're crawling along the ground and chasing people. It's a Halloween costume right there. Gotta replace the head. First things first.
Yeah.
I feel bad because the Beatles had a movie called Help that I used to watch when I was a kid, and it was a very strange, now very racially questionable script about a religious sect that worshipped a multi-hand god, and somebody from religion sends Ringo a ring because he really did wear rings all the time, the drummer, and they put this ring on. It's a sacrificial ring. You're only supposed to put it on before you get sacrificed to the gods, and he can't get it off his finger. So the Beatles go all around the world, and in real life they said, we want you to make another movie. Your first movie was a hit. And they said, okay, well, we want to go on vacation to the Bahamas. We want to go skiing in the Alps. They made a list of vacation spots, and so they just filmed a movie on location because they were had to work for their vacations. But it was a questionable plot where I'm like, you got it now as an adult. I'm like, boy, that doesn't seem okay. It doesn't seem okay at all. And it's, of course, all these people playing mysteriously, vaguely Asian, vaguely Indian. Who knows? They're not racially appropriate people. So you're like, okay, that's a white guy kind of an orange makeup. Like, where are they supposed to be from? It's bad. It doesn't get talked about very often.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But that's how I know this. Like, that was my introduction to.
Oh, interesting.
They called her Kylie.
Oh, I think I've heard of this one. I think this is slightly different but similar. Yeah. Okay. I think so. I think I've heard of this one.
Yeah, my early introduction into mysticism was Beatles movie. Okay, so I mean, I feel like this could be an interesting topic, but do you feel like without the deeper knowledge of fundamental darkness and things like that, do you want to do this now, or do you want to wait a bit and like look into this subject more, or just lightly touch on some of this, where does depression and detachment and perspective and all these different things, like when is being observant and removed from a darker place versus an enlightenment place? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's not clear.
1 second.
Go ahead.
1 second. I think I have to talk to a postman.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
No, not a problem. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I kind of figured that they had it was the UPS that came to pick up a package, and I figured they'd already come and gone, because I thought, gosh, it's weird that they'd come this late in the day, but I was wrong. Of course, it has to be when I'm actually in a conversation. It can't be like the vast amounts of hours when I've got nothing. Somehow I'm accomplishing nothing anyway. Somehow I've managed to work all day and have nothing to show for it. Yes. Yeah. Back to the matter at hand. Like, what do you think about, I like the subject, but I'm not sure if you feel like brushing up on a few things or like both of us looking for
Yeah.
more.
What were you thinking? Did you have any ideas before this?
No.
Okay.
No, I remember it was funny because I was so like when I'm doing the podcast, I'm trying to like look at the various topics that I've jotted down, that's from your email, that's from the website, like various things. And it's called Intimacy and Metamorphosis. And at the end, you're like, well, we could have gotten into intimacy. And I was like, oh, God. Like, that's the title. Where I'm like, I thought we did. And I was like, I thought all these bullet points are parts of the intimacy. So I'm like, oh, shit. Like, do we have to rename the next episode? This one's actually about intimacy. So I kind of just thought, like, damn, I thought I was so busy hitting the minutia that
I thought it was, yeah, and I think it's perfectly good. I don't think we have to, I don't feel one way or another about it. So maybe I'll try to give a quick summary. So what I think is, okay, so crippling depression happens. You also seem to me to have some, well, you said earlier that some depressing moments of and knowing how that feels. Yeah. And I had that depression to where like I was literally, to go to the restroom was so difficult that I used to keep a bottle nearby and use it to urinate in because
you're lucky you have the equipment to make that happen because ladies have no choice.
Right.
You gotta get up.
Oh, during that time I actually found there's a female version of this, like they have, anyways. There's like this. Have you seen that?
Is it Stadium Pal? There's a Stadium Pal for guys where it's like if you're at the stadium and you're watching a ball game and you don't want to lose your seat and you don't want to miss any plays, they call it Stadium Pal, and basically it's like an external catheter that you can just keep peeing into a bag. And I got my dad as a golfer when he was golfing a lot. I got him an extra club that actually was hollow, and it's called Euro Club, and it came with almost like a little apron that you tie around your waist, and then you would just in some bathroom in the middle of the golf course, you just it looks like a club and nobody would know. And it was a big hit as far as like laughter. I don't think it actually got used. I don't know what happened.
I've seen a female one where it allows females to use the male standing toilet.
Oh yeah, it's like
I forgot what it's called though. Yeah.
I think it's something to do with the urinal.
It's very specific to that, to the standing urinal.
So messy.
Is it messy?
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
There's not a seal on that. Like water takes whatever shape, like forget it. Like, just put a Depends diaper on it. Up the urinal.
Diaper.
Diaper sounds like the only possible hope.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
That was bad. I wonder how many people who are suffering from depression actually wear adult diapers to avoid getting up to use the bathroom.
I'm sure there's people out there.
For me, when I've been down before, I remember thinking like it feels so, it's impossible not to be elated when you've had to pee for a long time and you finally get to go. Like the miracle of that where you're like, oh, I was about to explode, and even no matter what kind of grief you're in or whatever, you're like, oh, this is a good moment. So I would like hold it so that when I did go, it would be like a brief moment of pure bliss of like, yes.
Oh wow, that's great.
Urine as a depression indicator. That is our topic for the day.
Yeah, I love the excitement. I didn't even think about that. Once you bottle it up.
I mean, like, yeah, it's like, just like it's like a physical. It's just such a relief.
Yeah, so
if you ever need to feel relief, hold it for a while, and you will feel relieved for a tiny bit.
Interesting. Might have some future experiments. Yeah.
I think it works.
Yeah, I remember.
Not very fulfilling for very long, but
can be. I guess it matters how much water you drink.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem. I was about to say, so for that experience, okay, we talked about the kind of, what were we calling it? The dissatisfaction of living there, right? But we didn't talk so much about the kind of personal effects. I think we did, but what it led to. It's actually skipping some. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It did have some weird glitches, but not too bad.
Okay, I'll keep going. So I was wondering, okay, so there was this crippling moments and where I didn't even want to get up. I think I said in the last talk I was like putting shirts near the door and like trying to also just like not go out at all. I think I said that. And in the middle of all of that, so I'm getting knocks on the doors pretty much every night and sometimes during the day. Oh, I'm going here. Go with me. No. Like to just, no, I don't want to go. I don't have any clothes. I wore them all. It's just like terrible. Haven't washed my clothes in like weeks. And a few times I did go and I'm just in like this smelly suit at this point. And just not caring, but just like, I don't know, just totally, it's such a raw, tender feeling that was there. And I would just try to avoid any engagements as much as possible. And then having remembered, and during that time, I think I may have said this as well, the celebrity wanted to make music before I really entered the deeper part of the depression, like maybe 4 or 5 months earlier. And I was helping him make it. And that's actually how I started learning how to technically like mix and like make music. Mostly I focus on vocals. I had other people who would eventually focus on the instruments. And so I tried to help the celebrity make a song. And that led to me obsessing over like, oh, how do you make a song? And, GarageBand and like Logic and like, plugins and all this stuff and learning all that stuff. And then somehow through my depression, I started because he stopped making the song. He gave up on it for whatever reason. Got distracted, found something else. And then, but there was this like $5,000 equipment, right? Like it's very good equipment. We had studio equipment. And it's like, I'm going to go out there and like use it. And so I would go out there and try to make music. And really just like not write anything down. Just I would grab a instrumental from somewhere and play it and just play music. I mean, just start singing, talking, kind of rapping, whatever would come out. I would just be like vomiting out the most ridiculous things, things that I would just never say. And I started looking back at those just a couple of days ago because I was talking with Nathan and I was like, wow, these songs are the lyrics are so interesting. So I just want to show you one of them just to get a feel for it. And then we can see. So luckily I kept Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so just to look at the volume, it's so funny, and obviously quantity is not quality. If you just look at all the files of all the songs, they're just like, there's at least maybe like, I don't know, there's tons of songs, dozens and dozens of songs.
Silly Panda?
Huh?
I think I saw it on Silly Panda.
Where was it?
It was up. Not up too far. in the middle somewhere. But I was just trying to see if I could read anything. I was like, I see Sleepy.
Yeah, I remember that panda. I made that panda in Photoshop or something. It was terrible. Yeah, I was trying to make a logo, and I couldn't really find a good logo. So anyways, I started making all this music, and if you look at one of the first songs that I did, which was completely right here. And then I was looking at it. So this is You're waiting on magic in a world so tragic. I keep myself all alone because you can't even reach me on the zone. You call me even late night on the phone. Were some interest. So this is completely just made up on the spot over a kind of like pop instrumental. And what I thought was really interesting is this came out of it, and I never had said this out loud anywhere. It was like, which felt like a kind of version of a very dark version of Buddhism. And it was like, oh, who am I? Oh, nowhere, boy. Where am I from? Oh, nowhere. And all of a sudden this like, I think it was like this acceptance. Like I started to make music that was very dark, and I can't even help but make music that's dark. I don't know why. It's very hard for me to make like a song that sounds happy, just because most of my machinery and skills from then, or whatever you call them, was built in that place of darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this song, to bring up the Beatles again, have you ever heard Nowhere Man?
No, maybe.
He's a real nowhere man living in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Doesn't have a point of view, knows not where he's going to. Isn't he a bit like
wow.
I mean, you had a right to feel like a nowhere boy because knowing your history, of course, that came out of you. But this is John Lennon, who was born to a single mother whose dad was a sailor, ran off during the war. His mom has a baby, is a very young single woman, drops it off at her sister's house and says,
right, I've watched this. Right.
So like there's a bit of that not having a foundation in his life, even though he had plenty. I mean, in comparison to some. He definitely had his problems, and he would write stuff like this and realize like he thinks he's making up some fun gibberish. He's had a joint and he's like, I'm just making stuff up. And then years later, he would look back at it and be like, oh, help was me asking for help. And Nowhere Man is really about me. Like, the Nowhere Man, the world's at your command. It's just, anyway, those lyrics, I mean, if we did a meditation and you read some of your lyrics, this one might make sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Making all his nowhere plans for nobody.
Yeah.
So the source of where I originally got it, and it's kind of funny that you say this because I didn't think of John Lennon as being really a part of the Beatles because I didn't listen to the Beatles much, but I watched Nowhere Boy, which is where I got this lyric. Have you ever seen?
I've never seen Nowhere Boy.
Okay, so I bet this song is probably played, but I never heard of. I've heard of the song but never listened to it. But there's a film called Nowhere Boy, and it's literally John Lennon's story from someone's perspective, and he's doesn't want to really live with his
aunt.
His aunt, yeah, right. And he's like subversive as hell, and making a whole cult out of it. But the whole theme, one of the things that I saw in there, I related to this completely. Obviously, so much so that subconsciously, I decided to say this in a song. I wasn't thinking about it ahead of time, right?
I bet the song doesn't show up because it's about early Beatles. It sounds like it's about when the Beatles formed. They were called the Quarrymen and all that. So earlier in their career, that was like Nowhere Man came along later, but anyone that's like a huge Beatles fan knows Nowhere Man. So Nowhere Boy is like, oh, it's John Lennon when he was younger. You know, it's a good title. I don't even know if the song would have shown up, but that's really it's interesting that I could see the John Lennon in your lyrics and you didn't even realize.
That's so
I was
cool.
on the money.
Yeah,
I always bring everything back to the Beatles, but I'm like, oh, that's right for once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like your description of John Lennon because it reminds me again that even though you're never alone at any time, at any point in life, you can feel alone. And so it's completely a mental attitude. Even though my life may look more nowhere than John Lennon's, maybe just from one perspective, who knows, right? You can feel completely alone. And I mean, yeah, I definitely did. And I was maybe referring back to my old life, but I was also referring to I'm around all these party people. Mm-hmm. You know, hundreds of people dancing and having the time of their life. And I'm just, you know.
Yeah, well, by going to the parties, right. You're like, this is nowhere. We're going to go to the next nowhere. Like, this is nothing. And then you're at home, you're like, well, what did you do instead? Nothing. Right. That was nowhere. Like, it just sounds like it was all very hollow. You know, what you were seeing, whether you were in the crowd or on your own, it was a very hollow thing. And it's so interesting that you said this person wanted to make a song, because I thought this, you have always said celebrity, but I always figured it was a musician. So now I'm like, they weren't putting out albums.
Not originally.
Okay.
I couldn't say that that's true now, but yes, at the time, definitely not a musician. It's not a well-known musician at the time.
Right. But well-known for something, because there's a lot of millions flying around. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think there's probably plenty here to talk about. Your personal experience seems to follow on the things we already covered. I mean, like, I feel like we've alluded a little bit in the first conversation we had. So episode 2, we talked a bit about the dissatisfaction and the celebrity, with life with a celebrity. Then we went back further last time, which is more of a childhood primer about your metamorphosis. But this would take us back to like that gap between your current longest stint of being and that celebrity world. So it's definitely ground we haven't covered yet.
Yeah. And go ahead.
How did you do you want to talk about what over the course of that year, like, were you in that dark place for the whole year? Were you slowly, like, looking back now, were you slowly fading out of it? Did you get lower and lower and it reached a breaking point? Like, what was the graph of like of that year, and how long did it take you to crawl out? And
and I definitely think this is the most, at least, exhausting emotional period of my life, as far as I can tell. Going family to family, nothing, not a single scrap versus this, not comparative. Depression is, or what I felt, which I call depression. I would like to wish that on no one at all, just because of like you said, I think the nothingness. So yeah, it'd be great to talk about that. The way out. So I started making all of this music, and as you can tell, there's a lot of music. There's probably close to 200 songs, and this is quantity. This is like and all of them, luckily, because I was still pretty intellectual. Like I was have like a bunch of Heidegger and existential philosophers and some phenomenologists in here, because I was reading them. But what was really nice about the music was I didn't think about it. I just let it out. Do you know what I mean? So that creative expression, that spontaneous doing, I think, is an important part of it. And I believe that really helped me get a grasp on starting to accept that, like I was telling Nathan that I think the disease, or the thing that I realized that started, that the darkness came in, like I started to see that all this was empty. This dissatisfaction, this loop of sex, money, drugs, and boom, 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 and boom, 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 and boom, 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 and it's just not gratifying, and there's still something more, boom, boom, boom. To notice that, I feel like I was able to notice that, this is not going to work. Not just logically, but through experience, and then retracting, rejecting, becoming a recluse to it, right? And that was very painful because I was resisting it, right? He was knocking on the door. Hey, come out. Girls are knocking on the door. Hey, come party. And I'm just, no, really resisting it. And I think that's why it was so painful. I was completely resisting it. I was like, I need to stay pure. I need to keep my old values. I need to get back to this kind of me that is a good boy, has some standards. And I don't know what I would do. I'll block off my room and make this a place of, no dirtiness, no filth in here, right? And this music was letting the filth out. It was almost like this.
Right. You were channeling it. It's like a stream of consciousness, too. The way you did it was just not overthinking it, which is, I guess, there's a thing, The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron's book, has a bunch of, it's been popular since the 70s, and it's a lot of tips on how to be really creative and how to get in touch with yourself. And she has this thing called morning pages, where she says, get a notebook, the first thing when you wake up, ideally before you walk, if you can do it before you brush your teeth, great. If not, don't wait much longer. Don't look at the news. Don't get into your appearance. Set aside some time and get yourself a notebook and write 3 full pages, which is crazy. It's well, how big are the pages? How big is the notebook? Because I bought a big notebook and I did it for a couple mornings in this quarantine where I'm like, that sounds good. She's like, just brain dump, stream of consciousness, put your pen on the paper. No one's going to read it. You probably won't even read it. Doesn't have to be good handwriting. Just start and see what your mind comes up with. And you might just be writing I didn't sleep well, and the stupid noise, and I can hear the construction outside. It should just be you're just filling up the page. And I don't know what I'm supposed to write about. Then you might be I hope I do this today. And then pretty soon she's you might end up uncovering some gems in there. I never realized I wish I had put out an album, but I didn't know. There might be something where you're it comes up a few times, and also have I written that down a bunch of times? It could just be an interesting way of gold mining through your stream of consciousness and just getting it all out first thing. So if it could even be a list of here are the things I know how to do at work, blah blah blah, blah. And you just get it out of your mind so that when you sit down to actually do stuff, where was I? 3 pages is a lot. Don't buy a big notebook for that, because I gave up 30 minutes.
3 pages.
Halfway through the first page, I'm I can't write. My handwriting this small and these pages this big. All my writing was about how big the book was and how small my handwriting was. This is not a good combination. But in a way, I think that what she was kind of tapping into was what you managed to find for yourself in the music. It was let it out. Just it's talking, if it's singing, is singing. Just blurt out words. Don't think about it.
Right.
And that's kind of what she says. And it makes a huge difference. So many artistic types, creative types have said I couldn't get through. Once you get used to it and it becomes a habit, you think, how would I even approach my day without this? It's part of my practice.
Right.
Keeps me sane. And I tried for 3 days.
Morning pages.
Morning pages. Yeah, you can look it up. I think, and I think Russell Brand has an interesting podcast, but it's on some not Audible. It's on some Stitchery or something where you have to pay a price.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But he releases little tiny clips of 15 minutes, and they're so abrupt. You're dropped into a conversation, ripped right back out. I got nothing out of that. He was on there, and I think he has just that little snippet where she's talking about how she came to do it and why people should try it. But it reminds me of it. So like, it definitely seems helpful.
Yeah.
Just to have a creative outlet where you're without judgment, without self-critique.
Right. That's great that you said that, because I'm still trying to make sense of it, and I think that's it. I was also not identified with the music. Like sometimes I would make it and I'd be like, who made this? And so I think that was like a really experience of like letting go of the judgment. And I had an ex girlfriend at the time who I used to send these songs, and she used to be just oh my gosh, it would kill her. Actually, it's like, oh my gosh, what are you making? Like it was just the worst. I told her, I would tell her like, I'm trying to just let this thing be. Like I knew she would hate it, because we kind of have the same values of like being good people and stuff, right? And now I'm making songs about like that time that I was in the club and how I was feeling about being there, and how, all of the filthy things that were going on. And like, she's listening to that and she's like, my worst nightmare is now on a song created by the person that's supposed to save me from my worst nightmare in some way.
Was she an ex-girlfriend already, or was she a current girlfriend at the time?
Kind of current, so it was like fading out at that time. Yeah. I couldn't even call her at that time. I was so depressed.
But you would send her the music files?
Yeah, I would send. That's like the only thing I could send her. Here.
It's like sending someone your morning pages. It's kind of like,
right.
It's just like unfiltered. In your mind, like, I don't even know, these sentences don't connect. And of course, years later, you're like, oh, yeah, they do.
Right.
At the time, like, it's just a song. It just keeps out. It's like your cries for help. And you're like, I can't speak to you, but here's some insane lyrics from just mind. Enjoy.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was.
That's intense.
Yeah. I hadn't thought that through at the time.
I don't know how clearly you were. I don't know if you were too up on your social. Mr. No, I want my No. We got you more Cliff Bars.
No. Die. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I think there's plenty here. If there's certain, like I have written down various phrases like, I wonder about depression. Like, I wonder what term you want to use. And I don't mind if we use depression, but I feel like it gets messy when we talk about depression, depending who comes to the podcast, because they might be thinking, gosh, you're not a psychologist. You're not a psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
I've been clinically depressed. You don't know what you're talking about. Or like, I'm on meds for that. You guys are talking about it like, oh, you had a weird, there's a cause. Like you had a break in your life.
Right.
And you were an adult. You're no longer a kid that's like going to land in another house. Like you were suddenly on your own having to figure out like, what is pain? What in the hell? So they can say, well, there's an obvious cause. For me, it was chemical. Like I just feel like if there's a word about.
Yeah. We can think about it.
Or like disillusionment.
Right.
Or,
the dark night of the soul.
Yeah. Dark night of the soul works really well. And we can sprinkle it with the word depression, but I think using it, not relying on that as how we're terming this.
I like that. That's I think that's good.
Yeah. There's some disillusionment going on there. There's, like you were detaching. You weren't just resisting, like you were, it's not like you were resisting one thing and like pouring all your efforts into another. Like what happened to research? Did you just pause? What you were there and you're justifying like, I'm here in your house because I'm kind of your assistant. I'm kind of watching your world. I'm kind of making notes. And all of a sudden you're like, you're not going anywhere. They finally just say, well, you haven't left your room in months. And
so this is the odd part. I don't know if we want to talk about this, but the odd part is that's when I became most valuable. So weird. So after making probably like 50 songs, and then people being over and like hearing the song that, oh, he's an artist. All of a sudden I have this total shift in relations that was, yeah. And it's why I was telling you I had like a 20,000 following Instagram account. It totally changed. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is a value. You're going to help me become more famous. This is better than the research, than basically anything. This is going to give me more money and more girls and all the things that I wanted. So, yeah, it became this weird. I never wanted it to become anything like that. I had no aim. It was just saying the most ridiculous things. Yeah. So I don't know if we want to get into that part. That part's interesting. Yeah, it totally changed our relationship. I became like this. Oh yeah, I became this celebrity's artist. Like, oh yeah, this is my artist. He would go up to people all of a sudden like, now I'm playing artist. Now I'm this kind of mysterious, makes these really dark songs that people don't know. They listen to that are like, what's getting played in some of these clubs. And it's like, I don't think people really understood what was being said. They had their own interpretation, and so did I. And yeah, it just became like this weird. Then I went and like I almost signed a contract. Like I said, I met the rock label, rock something. I met I heard Beyonce in the other room, the Jay-Z's partner, and talked with him and talked with like some Ryan Leslie, and I signed some contract that I eventually got out of because I didn't want to make music for them anymore. But yeah, it went all the way to like that.
You know, like to get that many followers on Instagram, first of all, you have to be on there because I can't have that many followers because I'm not on there. So like,
right, I wasn't doing it. Yeah, so I would be getting like videoed when I'm making music. It became a big like, totally went from like underground honesty to like one of the songs they made me make. So eventually I went to like some of the most expensive studios. So like one of the studios that Michael Jackson recorded songs, I was there. I think it's like $300 an hour or something like that. It's extremely expensive. So all of a sudden I'm there and I'm like, they're like looking through my songs and they're like, is this song about vaginas? It's like, no. This song seems like people would like it. It's called Tasteless. Can we? And there's like this big party, lyrics by committee party of like, oh, if we just change this lyric. And I was like, what? This song is not about tasteless vaginas.
You're not flavor free, don't you know?
Right.
That would be disturbing.
And to me, that was really about like everything is just tasteless. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything has become in this depression, like lacking of flavor. You know, life was, and I think that's a part of the darkness.
I love that they're like, this part here where it says life has no flavor. It's vagina, right?
Right. Right.
If you put something out of vagina there instead of the world, that'll sell.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So it became literally, and I went along with it. So the first like song that I had created like in the studio, not just those drafts, was this song called Tasteless, and it has like this double meaning. So I had to start creating myself as a double meaning artist, which all artists are like that anyway. But mine was like, okay, I'll create like this nasty music on top, but it'll really, like I have a song called Your Body, and it could sound, definitely be interpreted as like hip hop or pop. It's a singing song. But it's actually about Heidegger's being in time and embodiment, right? And so I have all these notes in this Basecamp that's really funny. Yeah. So anyways,
oh my God.
that was the Yeah, it was everything. Yeah, just got interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know if that would be another episode. I think that we'll have to allude to the fact that, like, obviously there was a break here.
Right.
If you've listened to this podcast so far, or if you're just listening for the first time,
right.
You know, Christian this life of more variety than most of us, and that included a brush of living with a celebrity,
right,
for a while, and there was a break there, and we'll get into maybe we'll get into that part of the story a bit more at some point, but we're going to talk about the aftermath.
Yeah,
I do think people number one question would be like, so how did it end? Like right. So you were there, and then all of a sudden you're leaving, and like, were you fired, or you throw a fit and storm out, or like do they have to come find you like as a hermit in the corner with fingernails longer than and peel you off the wall because you were drafted to the bed? You know, there's a million ways where you're like, how do you get the hermit out of your house? You're a celebrity, right. You're jet setting all over the world, and you come back and you're like, hey, dude.
Right.
I guess like, no.
Right.
You're like, all right. So she's like, that's the guy that lives in the closet.
Right.
The guy that lives in the closet. Like, I love that people probably thought it was recording like a Halloween. Like laughs when you walk by it. It's like if you knock on this door, it says no. Like at what point are you like, maybe we should get the guy out of there?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, we could use that closet for like spare parts and tennis rackets.
Yeah, totally.
So I think we need to acknowledge like that's a whole nother story if we're gonna try to tackle this, because I'm sure that once you maybe re-listen to this or something, I've got rejecting the cycle. Like I think it was a cycle of creating a feeding frenzy, the sex, the drugs, the women, like all, like the fame, the money. You could see that the more you had, the more you needed.
Right.
Like it just was a cycle of feeding frenzy. So like rejecting the cycle, I've got nowhere boy written down. I've got stream of consciousness, no self-critique.
Right.
You know, just I've got these weird little words written down that I'm sure you will also note. But I feel like if you kind of expand on those a little bit with like any philosophies or
what's the teaching,
quotes or teachings that you think you look back and you're like, oh, I so obviously lived through like the dark night of the soul, like those kind of concepts. You're like, obviously, like Kierkegaard said, you live life forward but only understand it backward. And so now you look back and you're like, oh. Right. It's interesting you don't wish it upon anyone though, because I feel like not that you would want to do it again, or like if someone gave you a time machine and said you can be this much younger, you're like, oh God, no, because I'd have to live through that year. But
no, I would do.
Without that year, let's say you left and it was pretty smooth, and you made the transition, like you were super resilient, like you had been between your houses as a child, like it was just the same thing as usual, like really, really agile. Like, would you be who you are, where you are anyway?
Right. And I think that's a good point. And I think we should take my statement with, I wouldn't wish that, totally a joke. I wish this upon everyone.
You know, I think we should definitely say, you know how you go through something and you say, I wouldn't wish that on my enemy? I actually wouldn't tell my It was the worst thing I've ever experienced, and like if you don't have this in life, you haven't really lived. You know,
right.
And if you're in it now, it doesn't mean you need to prolong it. It just means that it's part of growth.
I really like that. I also like your ending, which was, I mean, your question of like, one, it'd be great to get that, whatever your notes are. We'll put it in the doc and I can outline it.
It's real sophisticated.
I love it. No, it's actually great. It's great. And I think I'll try to reference the Dark Night of the Soul. Maybe we can both look at that. I'll probably look at some YouTube. I really like some of the excerpts I've read from the Dark Night of the Soul. And I'm glad.
Publication?
Oh yeah, this is by St. John of the Cross.
Oh.
In his mystical time.
Or was it just his first name?
Saint John. The John. Oh, okay.
So like the Kardashian, right? It sounds like a
Saint Kardashian, right?
It's a Kanye West child, right? Saint West.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize it's actually been. St. John bothered. That's nice of him. I've heard the expression a lot. I went to Catholic school it was 16 years and Episcopalian for 2. Did they ever teach me one day of the Bible or anything related to it? No. Every day we had religion class, and every day I'd come home and be like, if I have to write one more goddamn essay about how unique I am, I'm going to fucking lose my mind.
Interesting.
And I'm like, this is a thesaurus. This isn't a textbook.
This is a thesaurus.
No one is like you. There's not one other person who's ever lived just like you. You're unique. You're like a snowflake that no one else is like. I get it. Years. Every day. An hour every day for like
16 years.
Well, I mean, by the time I got to high school, it was a little bit different.
Interesting.
Tiny bit. But I was like, and then I went to college, and I was almost a religious studies minor. All the teachers, please, and I'm like, look, it's bad enough with English. I don't need people. If I'm a religious studies major, people are going to think I'm religious, and I'm not. Like, I'm fascinated by religious history, but
right.
Almost in an alarmist, like, are you kidding me kind of way.
Right.
Organized religions start off with good intent, like any good cult, and get real ugly real fast. And then the philosophy majors, like being in the philosophy classes, I would look around and I'm like, I don't want to be in any club these people are in. They think they're real smart. And the philosophers would be mortified. The philosophers would be like, you're who was reading me?
Right.
You don't understand a thing. You don't even ask a question. You're like, I totally get Sartre. I'm like, oh my God. I'm not declaring my minor. I'm not part of this club.
I love this.
It's the interests and the people around them. I'm like, people are ruining it. Right. And all the teachers like, you want to major in this? You want to major in this? I'll help you publish papers. And I'm like, no, I don't. Sorry that everyone here sucks. I hated my college. It was the worst.
Yeah. Because you're a natural mystic, Katie.
I might be. If you think so.
Not mystic as in like magical, but like when you take a look at, I'm going to send you over, and maybe we do make the theme a little bit more Christian mysticism this time.
Mystic pizza, since you always love pizza.
Yeah, mystic pizza.
You know what I've never seen it. It's an old 80s movie with Julia Roberts before she was very famous, and it was like about a bunch of girls that work in a pizza joint, and they all have their love affairs, and it's like an 80s drama, romance of like hot young women that all work in one place called Mystic Pizza. I have never bothered wasting my life on this film, but I think it's a funny joke. If you're like, come listen to our next episode, it's called Mystic Pizza. After all your pizza references, like, what the fuck? And if we started it, like, today we're just going to talk about the 1986 classic Mystic Pizza. And
I love that. I'm either going to keep the word pizza or find a new word like dumplings.
Dumplings. You could do like a calzone, like a calzone. I'm not sure how to say
true.
It.
I mean, that's basically
so close to pizza. It's a folded pizza. I'm sorry, you were going to tell me something. You're going to send me about mystics, and I interrupted you because I just thought of Mystic Pizza and I got very excited.
I love that. Mystic Pizza. Someone has to write a mystical experience they had with pizza so I can read it. Oh my
God. I think it's you, Christian. I think it's up to you.
We're gonna do a transcript word cloud on pizza.
If we had to talk about the crust and the sauce,
right,
and the cheese and the toppings of like what's on your Mystic Pizza. And you foundation, humility, and you got to have a sauce of acceptance.
And hold the cheese. And hold the cheese.
Hold the cheese. Oh my God. I'm sorry, what were you saying about?
I'm going to send you over Mike, what's his name? Eckhart Meister.
Not totally.
Not Tolle. I haven't really listened to Tolle, so I don't really know much about him.
You might find him interesting. I mean, I find him interesting, and I don't buy it all, but I like what he's trying to do, and I really like Oprah trying to help him try to do what he's trying to do. Like, I appreciate them trying to help everybody. But they did the whole Powerful Now. They went through the whole book like 10 years ago, and it was an online class, like it was unheard of at the time. And it was just like, it was basically Zoom before Zoom, where anyone could join and anyone could submit questions, and it was unheard of. And it was just Oprah, who's so good at, like, I'm trying to be Oprah, where she'd be like, come on, Eckhart, are you kidding me? Like, she makes him laugh, and she's like, you're telling me? And like, you know what? Like, she like calls him out on stuff, and like goes, whoa, you just blew my mind. And, she has that every woman kind of, she's Oprah, so she's not, but like she has that vibe. Right. But he did have a story where he was actually incredibly detached, and he was suicidal, and he was in such a dark place, and then he had some sort of psychic break, and he was a totally different person the next day.
Wow.
It was like whatever he is now, if you want to call him enlightened or thoughtful, he went from being just like a workaholic, like study crazed, like super academic, really driven, but super down, and then something just snapped, and he was like, I get it. Like, it was just people were like, who are you today? And he's like, I just got it.
I love it.
And I think he laughed. I think he like woke up and he was like, oh, I got it. Like an overnight success.
That's beautiful.
So I might be misquoting that story, but I think that
I'll look it up.
Be interesting.
I'll look him up as well then. Yeah, that'll be great. So I know that he's named after Eckhart Meister.
Oh, that's
nice. Meister Eckhart, yeah. He named himself after that. Because, I guess.
He was hoping people like me would confuse them for each other. Like, that was his life's goal, and I made it happen. I should send him a letter. Hey, just so you know, it worked. My friend mentioned Eckhart, and I thought he meant you. You've done it. You've stolen that name.
And I also seen you Saint Teresa of Avila. Like, some people find her book hard to, some of her stuff hard, because there's such like what someone might see as like highly fanatical religious language. But all in all, she's like a complete
Sorry, my internet got janky.
It's okay. I was saying she's she went against her own covenant, and she created her own and extremely mystical experiences, and really interesting, just her description of God. And same thing for St. John of the Cross and his dark night of the soul. He's like, terrified out of his mind, going through this really dark period. I'm sure Jesus has a lot of mystical readings of Christianity.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
All right. And then I also would like to make sure, and this is more for, I think you know it better, is like, what questions need to be answered in order for this to feel complete? And I'm just saying that because of what you said earlier, is like, there's certain things that we can leave on the hook on purpose. Like, we don't want to cover that, which is great. But I also think there's certain things of like, well, wait, how did you go from that to this? Right. And I have the tendency to like leap over things and not really think, oh yeah, we didn't really take them through that part. So I think it'd be helpful to know what questions you think are essential to making sure that we at least cover those, and it would feel like somewhat complete for someone to take in, like, oh, okay, I get what happened. Like, kind of like the Eckhart Tolle story. You told me. I don't know how that break happened. I have a lot of questions, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was thinking about throwing himself in front of a bus.
Okay.
And then he woke up the next day and was like, oh, this is totally different. Like, Something really drastic.
Amazing. I can't wait to read this stuff.
My internet.
It's okay. I think we're good. What do you think?
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I mean, there's talking about your specific timeline. Like, I don't need to know, like, from week to week. Like, it was on week 26 when I realized things were getting a little worse than week 24, and I don't need it that specific, but just understanding, like, what the descent, and, like, did you start low and stay low?
Right.
Was it a jaggedy path of, like, today feels all right, the next week feels like I can't get out of bed?
Right.
Like, what happened before you left the house? It might be something that we shouldn't get into because then we haven't talked about you leaving the house. Like, we can just talk about day one. You've got a new start. I don't know how much you want to get into, like, relationship stuff or anything else. Like, I don't need to know all that stuff, but, like, what was the, like, where did you go and why? And, like, just logistic stuff for, like, from a biographical point of view.
Right.
And then that can illustrate the points of, you know, rejecting the cycle, dark night of the soul, how your stream of consciousness without self-critique helped you and became surprisingly desired by thousands. And, like, how that helped you. I mean, I don't even know if it really helped you because it almost seems like it almost re-entrapped you. Like, the recording it helped you.
Right.
But then it was like it's unexpected.
Right. Side effects. Right. Almost reification.
You signed a contract. I mean, like, you almost signed up for that life of your own.
Right. Right.
So I don't even know that part of your life, or if we just start it with that contract was not going to happen when you left, right? Like.
So I quit. So I'm the one who disappeared from the house on my own. I wasn't supposed to. We were going to move to this bigger mansion that was going to have a studio in it. And I had entered a relationship then. And I had already set my mind, even though I was going to all these things, I had really let go. I had given up. Like, I was doing the music thing more of like, so anyways, that'll be the through line, which is that I knew at least mentally that I was done. And that life was done for me. Going to those meetings were just like, I also started to really empathize with the celebrity. It went from having that relationship of trying to avoid him to like, you know, these songs are also about him. Like, all this is I'm getting to look at through the lenses of all these songs. There's songs about all the girls that, you know, their stories and I was meeting and so forth. And so all this was just like, there's a song called Stay Up All Night. And that's not about me. That's about the celebrity. And it's me being the celebrity.
Right.
I'm singing as the celebrity. You know, I cannot sleep. Is there any more girls on Instagram? Scroll, scroll, scroll. There's nobody in my bed. Who's up yelling at people who are not down to come over? And like, you know, that whole song was, yeah, so I was totally, then I would channel the girls. I had a song called, that was like, scratch me, hit me, throw me around. I don't care as long as you give me what I'm asking for. And it's like the status, this like, I need to be in this picture, or I need to be able to use you, and you can use me, you can use this body. And so I was the girl singing, you know, and it was really mystical for me. I was like, really, I never felt so mystical in my life. I was really just like, I'd be sitting there and just like really trying to channel them, and like just not thinking about it, but just doing it. And like, then, you know, there's probably a third of the songs, there's tears coming out as I'm making all this music. Like, oh, this is what's happening. And I think but I also, because of that, even though it sounds like I signed the contract and I was willing to do it, I had already mentally renounced that life. The music was my music. So, this expression, and didn't need to be popularized. All the Instagram accounts, those are not my accounts. And I allowed them to do that. I accepted that they were going to keep doing this game. And then I found time to move out. It took me over 6 months to do it, but I moved out. I wrote letter.
You didn't notice, like, you were sneaking out like one briefcase at a time of your.
I didn't have. I left. I threw away like everything. So this has started my path towards renouncing everything over the next 2 years. Like all of this clothing, all of it started there. When I renounced that life, when I threw away, I don't have the suit. I literally, Han was with me actually. We used that suit as a washcloth. This $2,000 suit as like basically a mop cloth. And then eventually threw it away. But the whole point is everything was just like mattress. Everything that I had was pretty much thrown away. I didn't have my past. I had very little things. I could have moved with a lot of suitcases, but nope. I was perfectly fine dumping. And that's why I think all the renunciation, food renunciation, all those things started to just happen so quickly after that. Yeah.
Right. Well, you said it took you 6 months. Like, was it 6 months of like every day mentally getting stronger and being more convinced you're going to leave, or were you like tossing things like, okay, did you leave the room empty? Right? Like, this is as I found it, nothing remains of me, or was it like, whatever's left is garbage to me, I don't need it? Like, what situation did you?
Right. I think mostly just, I said 6 months because the main thing I had to arrange was I still had to get a job, right? It was more the logistics of like, well, you can't just like totally leave. You actually are not, because I mean, I was offered a condo, I was offered like a lot of things to stay in, and those didn't. Also, I was in a relationship and I knew that wasn't going to work, and I didn't want to subject this person to this sort of lifestyle in the first place. So I had that as motivation. Right. Yeah.
Did you put this on your job hunting? Did you put the celebrity on your resume? So you just had a 3-year gap?
So I put the first 2 years as research, and then I created this whole with the two professors, I created this apprenticeship document, and that became like a part of my resume. Which actually the next two companies didn't care about that because I was getting hired as a data machine learning engineer, which they don't care about research. I mean, qualitative research. Yeah, so did not really get to incorporate that on my resume, which was perfectly fine, and also helpful for the NDA that would follow. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, now I'm thinking, I don't know how we tell the story without talking about, I don't know how we skip over anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need a starting point for an era. We need like a specified era. Like, I don't want to start with this story again and be like, we heard about the celebrity. Like, I don't know.
Right.
If we start with some topics and be like, okay, let's talk about the dark side of fame, or like the cycle that you witnessed, and how you broke free, and how that almost capped you again, and how you got out of there. Or
right.
Just be like, okay, let's just take you from the time where you extricated yourself from a situation. If you listen to episode 2, you know that there's research and living with a celebrity. When you leave that world, which we could talk about more about that, the final days at another episode, like when you leave, where does that leave you emotionally, spiritually? Like, how do you rebuild yourself after having your identity taken over that, and having spent so long resisting the cycle of someone else? How do you create a life for yourself? If we get started there,
right,
and because I don't know if that's where the real dark night starts, or if you think the dark night started when you're saying no in your bedroom and like smelly clothes. I'm not sure where the dark night is.
Yeah, at least for me, I feel like
which was darker.
Right. I feel like the dark night, the experience of the dark, things, not like the snap moment of deciding just one day that I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to any of these things anymore. That happened. And it was extremely strict, extremely absolute. And it's almost like I found the insight, but failed to understand what to do with it. And so I went into resistance, and that was the painful period. I would say that was the darkness, because I didn't confront it directly. I wanted to hide from it. I wanted to, So that's the darkness was in that, but it was leaking out of me. And then eventually I made the music, and that was, to me, the way out, the way to understand that feeling of, being okay with this kind of groundlessness. And also, I mean, there's a lot in it. I think we'll have to keep it contained, because it can get pretty wild.
And I'm trying to draw the life cycle. Like, I'm picturing, like, you're getting more and more dissatisfied with what you're seeing, the fame, the money,
right.
the women, the drugs.
Right.
And then you have this one day where you're like, fuck it, no.
Right.
So, like, you get more and more detached and, like,
I think that's much deeper.
Okay. And then, like, you discover music, and you might be starting to kind of come up again. And then you realize you're going to get trapped in the fame.
Right.
And that must feel icky. So you've got your 6 months of, like, fuck. And then you get out, and I'm like, I don't know where you go. Like, I don't know if it's like, oh, that was slightly better, but, like, I'm still way down. Like, I don't know where, like, I'm wanting to know, like, it might be interesting if you draw me, like, basically, like, from, I don't know, the last year of you being there or so, and then, like, till IDEO. So I know, like, where to probe.
Yeah. No, that's really nice.
Because I could just zoom right into, like, let's talk about what life was like before you found music as an outlet. But you were so in resistance mode that, you're super trapped. Like, all you can do is resist, which is a bad place to be. So I could just zoom into those moments the most.
Right.
That's how we want to do it.
It's around 2000, mid 2000. Yeah.
Because we could just say we're going to talk about the valleys, the dark valleys in this journey today, and they're not necessarily all in a row. They're scattered throughout a period, but I'm sure each one of them came with learnings. And you could talk about, like, music got me out of the first one, my relationship helped me with the second one, or whatever it is, or renouncing things helped me with the second one.
Right.
Not to put words in your mouth, but
no, that's true. Okay. This is like a rough version. We'll talk through. I'll maybe do some lines that are important here.
Aha.
Got it?
The Dark Nights. Okay. What's the thing at the top?
Oh yeah, I just drew that randomly.
What is it?
I don't know. Random words.
Okay, so after moving out, what does it say under moving out? There's two things. Something out.
Throws out.
Oh, throws out stuff.
Yeah, before I moved out. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I should say, so after moving out, I think the story there, which we can choose how much we want. So, I had, because when I moved out, I had decided to move out, and decided to give up that contract, which was no problem. I didn't feel. The only thing I had felt was I was, letting someone down. There's a song that explains that really good, which is like, it's called "Get Off of Me," and it basically is like, "Get off of me. I'm standing up for myself. Ooh, get off me." Yeah. So, and there's some stuff about taking the shackles off and stuff. So a lot of the songs become very salvation. Like the mood of the song starts to move towards this, like, whoa, nowhere, boy. Oh, this is actually okay. It's okay to be in this nowhereness. Oh, I don't have a home. Oh, that's okay. All these like realizing, oh, this is okay. I don't have to try to be someone. I don't have to copy the thing that I'm in. Oh, relief. And just these realizations of like, maybe like what the people were telling you, a version of what they were telling you was a snowflake. I did come across the idea, oh, I'm just totally me without trying. I don't have to try. Don't believe anyone. I became highly skeptical of anyone telling me how to get success at that. So I just became like, oh no, I don't believe anyone anymore. I'm only going to believe this experience. Like really, I think everyone is totally suffering, and like I can't believe anyone. Millionaires, the elite, no one is trustworthy in telling you how to live a good life. Because if I could live that life and have the chance to be an artist and feel like the terror of going back into that loop that is endless. I think that was at the when I was creating the music, this was like this insights moment as well.
Right. I think that's interesting, because I think that, I'm not totally sure, but I feel like the idea of the artist's way stream of consciousness is that it might start off and you're like, this is silly, this is about nothing, this is gibberish, I have to fill up this whole page, so I'm just writing random words and I think as you get used to the practice, things are coming out. Even in retrospect, maybe like that was really, I hadn't processed that. So like finding your way through the lostness to like get off of me. Like, that's a huge evolution that you don't even know you're doing, but you're working through it. Like you're just dumping it all out there. On that chart, in the middle, the biggest dip, between the biggest dip and the second biggest dip, what are those words at the bottom that you drew? I took a screen
capture. I put music and songs.
Music and songs.
On the way up, right?
Yeah. I can see that it's angled that way. I thought maybe you were labeling the darkest of the dark nights. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was pointing to.
Yeah, I think we should actually. I think it's really good to say that there was. I think if there is a night, we should call it out, because I do think I was listening to someone's story yesterday, and I was like, I really like how visceral. I mean, how they zoomed in on one moment really well, and like they're like, here's what it looks like outside, and they walked there. Whereas some of the stories I often tell, I think, are usually like, oh yeah, I was living with a celebrity, or I was, living it up, going from place to place, rather than like what about that one day that something changed? And I think that might be important if it exists. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about the one day that you finally said no and were like,
right.
I also think telling's about like, okay, so you were kind of a recluse after that, but let's talk about what did a day look like? So
right.
It's one thing to not go to the party.
Right.
But like,
right.
Like what does that look like? Is that you like literally not leaving the room to use the bathroom, like you said? Is it literally like it's more drastic than like, I'm not in the mood for another party. Maybe for the next week, the next month, I don't know, like go away. This is like a different response.
Yeah.
What did each knock on the door do? Like when you would hear that knock on the door and you knew they were coming and you probably knew there was going to come from more than one person.
Right.
And it was going to be, it's just how you had to live. Like, what did each one of those do? I mean, to make your heart race, you want to crawl under the bed? Did you have a lock on the door? Like, what were your defenses while you like bathed in this rejection? Like, what did bathing in rejection look like? Yeah,
I love that. We had a balcony, which had one of my windows faced the balcony, and so a day looked like making sure that was completely covered with this black styrofoam, like covering it completely. I had no light coming into my room because I didn't want them coming in through that way and like, come on, and like, so a day looked like trying to really be as quiet as possible as well. So I'd be on the bed and I would have like some, whatever food I had, I have no clue how I was getting it. I'd have wrappers on my bed. And eventually I knew it would be nearing nighttime. And it's nice because I had an attached restroom, so I could just go in there and go out, right? Which was great. And so I'd lock all the doors, including the restroom's door. And the reason I have this other dip is because after I started saying no, so anyways, the celebrity would come to the door. And after they got used to it, I remember a specific day where it was just like, come on, bro, you can't do this. Come on, you're supposed to be my wingman. You're supposed to be all these things, just totally kind of guilt tripping. And what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Just lots of like existential kind of questions. I could tell he was extremely frustrated with the situation. And I was supposed to be out there helping him or whatever that he called help. And then eventually he would, I don't know if it's him, but girls would eventually come and talk in really, I think, sweet voices and be like, hey, come on, we're having drinks, blah, blah, blah. And I would be really disgusted. I became like, please don't sell me your flesh. Like I would just have like terrible thoughts of like, I don't, like disgust of like, how
right. So it's not that kind of depression I think some people just feel like you're numbed.
Right. Not yet. Right.
Yeah. So you had a repulsion, like you were actually.
Eventually it became, so that's when I was much more active. So I could get up, I could make sure, I could let in the light for some time and turn out the windows and put up the styrofoam and, say no to them and stuff. It was like socially intelligible. But eventually I really started to feel like psychologically like a 500-pound person. I literally could feel it. I could just feel every movement that I would think of making would exhaust me. I would be sleeping all the time. So I really spent my day, I would get up at the same time. So I was trying to keep my old habits. So I'd get up at 4:00. I'd be like, okay, I'm getting up at 4:00. I'd start reading a book. Halfway through, I'd fall asleep. And mind you, I'd been sleeping all the time. There's not much I've been doing. So I have no clue why I'm sleeping. And I cannot.
Oversleeping, I feel like oversleeping makes you tired too.
Exactly. So I couldn't stay up. And then I just had this feeling of like, they would knock after this was probably like a month or two later, and I would just not react at all. I kind of lost the terror of them coming and maybe being able to get me to come out. It was just like I could just hear, huh? Go ahead.
Became conditioned to it. Like that was
right
every night. And so after a while, instead of being like, oh God, and like fight or flight, your heart is racing, or you're like nauseated by the thought of what they're offering you or whatever, all of a sudden it's just like, well, this is the nightly knocks. Like,
yes. Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, I think I stopped showering for like a week or sometimes like a little longer at a time. I used to take baths and just sit in the bath and like go underwater and just hold my breath and wish to God that everything would just disappear. I have videos. I would like video myself. I have no clue why. Eventually went into a music video, but I didn't intend for it to, of myself like just going underwater. And I just felt like I would stay in the tub for like 4 hours.
Yeah, when you said you didn't bathe, I was like, God, if you have your own bathroom, I'd just be in the shower all day.
Right. Yeah, eventually somehow the bath, showers, no interest. And I really only showered. I didn't do much baths before that, but I would just sit in the bath for hours. You know, my body would be completely shriveled up.
Were you ever flat out suicidal? I mean, it's one thing to wish the world would just go away. Like your
I don't know.
Like,
I don't think so.
Okay. I don't.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it. I think the closest I got was really like playing games with like, can I really kill myself? Is it possible to stay underwater long enough? But that was like the closest. It was,
it's not, by the way.
Huh?
You can't
right.
kill yourself by drowning.
I've heard this. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately,
unless you can't
for
swim
me.
and you throw yourself in with a brick around your ankles, you're in trouble.
Right. Or an octopus.
That's a very good floater.
Or a jellyfish, I should say. Have you seen 7 Pounds?
No.
Okay. He commits suicide by putting jellyfish in his tub, and he gets in the tub. Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So I don't think he went very painfully.
That sounds bad.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't quite understand it. Well, he really liked jellyfish when he was younger, and he found out from his father that that's the deadliest animal in the world. And then, 15 years later, it's like, I heard about this jellyfish. Anyways, 7 Pounds is pretty dark. Yeah. So, yeah, it was definitely, I don't think it was to the extent of suicidal. I was definitely losing weight during that time because I just did not have the appetite and did not want to get up. And, sleeping all the time. And, just not replying to people. My messages were building up. I couldn't message people. I just did not have, and people were calling me. I could not pick up their calls. I don't think I maybe talked to 2 people during like 4 or 5 months.
Now you sound like me in quarantine.
Yeah. I would say the celebrities people, I would be ignoring them. I've never had a ton of friends calling me. So that's, at that time I had the most people messaging me, but they're all part of this life. But I would be ignoring, the agent calling me and all these different things, completely unreliable. And, so.
So I wonder if we're going to talk about more than one of these dips, like, so music helped a lot with that one jag.
Right.
What, after you leave, there's another dip, right? So,
right.
So I'm wondering, what would you say was the main cause of that dip? Just the lack of identity, or?
I think 2 things. One is logistics. So I put a ... that kind of carries over that gap, if you can see. Yeah, because a lot of it was like just due to logistics. It was just like you need to do a lot of hard work to get back into the job market, having not been there for several years. And I started training as like a data scientist on my own, taking courses. So it became like, it was, but the dark part was I was seeing it happening again with my current partner. I was seeing her and I saw, oh, it's in everyone. She had it too. She wanted that life. She wanted us to do it. And I could see it. I could smell it. I could smell the hunger. And it's not like she was a bad person at all. Not at all. But I could just tell that she wanted me to help together, build out this supposedly good life. And I was like,
right.
I'm not going to be able to deliver on that. I knew that I could no longer do that. And yet, we have this great bond. And so I'm torn, right? Between, yes, we can be fancy. And I was just so done with it, right? Like I said, yeah, go ahead.
Shielded her from, had you shielded her much from the negativity of that? Like, if you were in somewhat early courtship mode and you like this person, usually you don't say, I was going through periods where I barely bathed for weeks. If you're not, right. You're not like saying I've lived this. Instead, you're probably, like anybody would be marketing yourself like, I live in that home. I happen to know so-and-so. Like, it's right. Real. It's not a lie. And so the impression is, this is a guy that's going to be able to provide some sort of luxury that I'm not accustomed to. It seems like it would make my life easier and happier. And I don't know how much of the, you think that, but I've actually been in there, and it's a never-ending hunger.
Right.
How much of that did you actually illustrate?
Yeah.
Or did you just try to say, that chapter's closed, we're moving on? Did you bother to, share those dark places with her?
Right. I think so. But I will say that what was really nice was there was this huge cultural gap. She's kind of fresh off the boat from China at this point. And I'll say this, she has a great accent now. She had a terrible accent at the time. And so China is not able to, they also have the same problems. But what was nice is that she didn't know the celebrity, even though she was got to meet him several times and meet the people around him. She's like, who are these people? Who are they? They're nobody to me. And so refreshing, absolutely refreshing that she could come around. She would see the material goods, of course, but it was very refreshing for her not to know. And I didn't tell her, right? I wasn't like, this person, just like, oh, this person did well for themselves.
Yeah.
And I didn't make it bigger. I didn't feel I needed to make it bigger than that. But, and she saw me doing art as completely playful, whereas the celebrity was like, no, you're going to keep doing this, and this is going to be a real thing.
It's a money maker. It's
right, exactly.
At what point on this chart did you meet her, or did you start going out before you moved out? Obviously?
Meeting her. I met her back in 2014.
Oh wow! So was she in the picture throughout this, or was it one of those things where you bumped into her again, or
Right, we were just meeting very casually. Yeah.
So when you were being the total hermit, barely moving your body, 100-pound guy, she wasn't like, honey, we have to go grocery shopping together. It was not like.
No, I think.
A major role.
So she was extremely into her schoolwork, so it was great. She was busy all the time. She's an excellent student. and she spent most of her time studying, so I could be completely anhedonic. and yeah, so, and then it was only when she graduated that it became like, and it was nice because the graduation was 2016, which is right around when it was over. Then she freed up, and it was like, well, there's a lot you haven't seen. Yeah. So that was when, I mean, she's aware of everything that I went through, but I think she was largely, I even made a song with her. And I was like, oh, you should say these words. This would be really cool. And she didn't take anything of the words, like, oh, interesting. And who knows what she really thought, but at the time I was just like, you don't know how dark these lyrics are. Yeah. And she sang them, and then she visited, and that was it. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think, okay, that's interesting. So I thought maybe she would come into play. Or like, well, also I think we're getting better because I found music and I found her at the same time. Like, I was just wondering where she entered.
Right. I think she entered much more prominently when I started being able to make real songs. So there's a period, and I think the way it's dragging up is where one cannot express their creativity as well as they would like. And I still can't, obviously, but I was at such a low level that, like, you know, I was frustrating. It's still frustrating to make music. It's like learning how to play guitar. It's like, and so she really started to appear on the scene when I could make actual songs, full songs, and then I could share them with her. And she barely knew English, so whatever I was saying was fine.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because as your ability to make music, because you all, like the Ira Glass, great quote. He has a whole thing about, you know, if you like something, you know what good looks like, and you know you have to start somewhere. And you know, if you have that critical eye, and you're like, I like this song, but not that one because that one's so amateur or whatever. And also, you try something for the first time, and you realize the gulf between your standard, which is cream of the crop, best there is.
Right.
Experts, and your first feeble attempt, you think, well, I'm no good at this, and then you break your own heart before you even get started. And on his This American Life, he actually did, I think you can find it on YouTube, he actually plays the audio of his own radio shows where he's like, guess when I made this show, and they're obviously terrible, like terrible. And he says this was 10 years in.
Wow.
He's like, you know it's terrible. I know it's terrible. I had made progress. This is awful. Like, imagine how much I had to work. And then people tell me, you make it look so easy. You can throw together a radio show, and it's like, you can find the perfect words, and it's perfectly, like, the perfect music. It's like, look at how bad I was. A decade in, like, this is what, like, he owns it. And he's like, and I knew it was bad. And I was embarrassed. Like, this is what I want to do. I have to keep, so, like, I mean, you started playing music or like experimenting in this way with this stream of consciousness style in like 2015 or 2016?
Well, the first song was around, the celebrity song was really in 2000, like the summer of 2014.
Okay.
But that wasn't when I started making music, remember? That I was just trying to help him make that song. And then I started learning more how to like mix and do that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, and the gap for me was more of, I think what helped get me through that was I was not making music to make songs. I just wanted to say what I wanted to say.
Yeah, it was an outlet.
Right. Yeah.
I hadn't. It's almost like acting. It's like you were acting out these roles. It was like you were like, now be your mother and yell at yourself.
Right.
You're playing these desperate women and these insecure celebrity, and like you're playing these roles to work through what you were seeing, which is really, you know, it's not like, oh, you know, I just kind of fiddled around and wrote myself an album. Like, it's a very different vibe.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for you to actually get comfortable, I mean, if you really start meddling with it in 2015 sometime, and then you start coming out of your shell more because it's actually taking more shape by 2016.
Right.
That's when she's hanging out more because you've got this thing to offer her and you're bonding and she's
Right.
simple. And then she graduates. Like it kind of like it definitely all timed out, and then to dip after with the like this is real life.
Right.
How to do this thing.
Yeah, fumbling around.
Seeing her normal human tendency to think, well, more wouldn't hurt.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Sure, you don't want to do that, like.
Right.
Because that would be a little more secure and nice things. Like, to see echoes of that in her is really interesting because she's this innocent culture who's not fully grasping all your words and like has this very much more pure appeal. And then her be like, "You sure you don't want the high five?"
Right.
That hazy stuff.
Right.
Yeah, how did you guys work through that? Is that a whole thing that you? I mean, she obviously came to terms with that.
Yeah. I think it's I think it was my next part of my next evolution, which is, I think there's one thing to experience the insight, another thing to be able to transmit it or try to point people toward it. It's like, you know, your father goes through a bunch of stuff and he tells the son, maybe you shouldn't do that. Son's like, okay. How should you know?
Yeah. That's fine for you to say you did all that.
Right.
You got to do it.
Right, exactly. So I think it was like, I started to realize that actually she does have to go through that completely alone. I can totally support, but when it comes down to it, I can't be in her consciousness. You know what I mean? I can be there. Like we never make, I think some philosopher said, maybe you told me this, direct contact or communication is impossible. So it's always something in between us. The fact that you are private to yourself somehow, which means you have to struggle by yourself. Even though I can kind of struggle with you, you still, I really cannot, I can empathize. And so ultimately she also has to, that was very hard for me because the whole time I was just thinking, I don't want you to go through this.
Yeah.
I don't want you to go through this at all.
I can only imagine what parenthood is like when you're
right.
Like, I want you to care what the bully says.
Right.
I don't want that grade to matter.
Right.
I don't want any of this to, like, I don't want the fact that she wore the same prom dress as you to be so upsetting.
Right.
There's nothing you can say. It's like, okay, that's
right. Yeah.
Wind up the doll and set it off because there's nothing.
Yeah. So it was a great, and she had a lot of, I think, baggage around appearance and like the world of WeChat, which we don't need to get into. But like, there's a song that I made that says, "Beneath cosmetics, there's something you forgot. Craving anesthetics, you love to numb yourself out." And there's a bunch of other lyrics, but the cosmetics part was an anesthetics. So I thought I really had an attack after moving out on those three things: condiments, anesthetics, and cosmetics. And that was like,
so no mustard.
No mustard, yeah, no ketchup. But the mental, right? The mental anesthetics, always not being able to deal with the pain like I was. I was in that situation and I was resisting the hell out of that situation. I just wanted to create my territory, protect myself. And I did, and really because I didn't want to put up the pain of confronting my reality of what is good and bad. I made a song called Right and Wrong, and it's like, you should get yourself dressed. And it's talking about a guy and a girl who's just, they went to a club or whatever, and they've had sex with each other. And then it says, you should get yourself dressed before I start seeing right and wrong. Right? This coming into, this is a disgusting situation, and it was really, how to accept that. So that confrontation was, that anesthetics was, I was really looking for an anesthetic. And then the cosmetics part was, all the, dressing up and putting on all these masks. There's nothing wrong with putting on masks, but trying to, escape people's retribution or criticism. Is that why you're putting on the mask? Questioning that with that idea of cosmetics, it just became so key part of my future years after that, really contemplating it. And Halhan at the time represented to me someone I saw that was still, frankly lost in that. And I saw that something had changed in me, that I was maybe almost too against it. And I've become much more sober now. It took a long time, but I think first is the attack.
Well, I think the rejection of it, the swing from was drastic. So it makes sense that it you have less to resist now in the current situation, so you don't have to be quite so stringent.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think I'm drawn to explore. I mean, like, I don't want to just be exploitive of like your experience, but I think we could say, like, everyone's had their moments of being down that can, looking back, can seem really dramatic. But like, what can be going on inside of a millionaire's house? Like, how can someone who, it's like a fairy tale to think, you were used to get extra food stamps or used for manual labor to feed the damn horses, and all of a sudden you're in a place where all you have to do is go out to the party. Like, it sounds like you hit the jackpot. Like, what does that actually look like? Like, what can that look like when you're facing a moral dilemma? What are the condiments, mental condiments? You talked about the
mental condiment. Such a funny word, condiments.
Because the thing is, like, are you saucing up, like you're making a dumb thought feel fancier by adding sauce to it? Like,
I like that. That's a great.
Like, basically, you're like, I want more money, but you're gonna say, like, because more money means I can donate to charity.
Right. Yeah, you're not willing. Yeah.
Like, put a bunch of sauce on it.
Right. Exactly. You've obscured the actual thing. Right.
Yeah. For me, your resistance, though, I feel like a lot of people would have. I guess the antisocialness was the extreme indulgence, but most people would go pure alcoholic, like wake up and there's a fifth of whatever, or constantly stoned, or sexaholic, or addicted to online gambling, or something that online shop, something that I forget if that would be a cosmetic, like some distraction. I think is usually the way that people go when they want to escape. And so the fact that you weren't overeating and you weren't indulging in drugs, as far as I know, and like your biggest extravagance was your 5-hour baths.
Extravagance.
Like, that was like, oh, he's really addicted to water. Bathtub shakes. I don't know. To me, that doesn't. That seems unusual.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did interesting. I never smoked. I definitely did. I definitely sniffed a few lines of cocaine at parties. I guess I never could get into like ecstasy and stuff they were having. I drank alcohol. That's about it. Yeah. Oh, and I did Adderall because the celebrity had lots of Adderall. And I did Adderall. But during the times that I was messed up, no.
Because it seems like you were just such in a deprivation tank.
Right.
Your styrofoam wall and your...
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I think if someone could have influenced me, though, it might have been possible, to be honest. I just think it was kind of fortunate that I wanted to lock myself in, and that I didn't have any previous addictions. I was pretty straight edge most of my life. I'm kind
and
of
the not eating was more about feeling like
yeah,
disgust, feeling no appetite, which I totally get, because I think
right,
some people, when they get depressed, they want to eat everything in sight. It's like their
right,
medicine. Like
right.
it tastes good, and like they gain tons of weight. Where I'm like, at least when I get depressed, I drop some pounds. Like, you gotta do one or the other. No one's ever like, thank God I gained this weight. You know, like, so like at least if you gain back, if you don't look healthy, you want to well and eat a little bit more. But it's like a nice perk that my body's like, ew, food, I'm gonna yak. Don't smells disgusting. So
Right.
like I get that when I had that too, where I some people would go into like, how much could you control in your world? Not very much.
Right.
So I could see where becoming anorexic or something where a lot of that's about control. Like I control my calorie count. I control how much I control. Like it becomes this little thing is my zone of levers and like pulleys and like it's me.
Right.
But I don't think that's what yours was. So like I feel like it's an interesting. You went kind of Howard Hughes. He was the rich guy that became a recluse. And
really?
Yeah.
Oh, the plane guy.
The aviator, yeah.
The aviator. Yeah. What is it? I remember he had OCD or something.
Yeah, he had OCD. He was super rich and was like this inventor. He bought movie studios. He was just, I mean, he was the elegant bachelor among town that every starlet would be on his arm, and he could buy anyone he wanted, basically. And then he had some bad investments. He crashed an airplane. Like his OCD got worse. Definitely had a bunch of mental health issues.
I see.
Would just like lock himself in his place, and like he didn't like going to the bathroom. He just had jars of urine everywhere.
Oh,
and like
I can relate.
Yeah. And like didn't bathe, didn't clip his nails, like he was kind of like
becoming a little monster.
like little, and he had the money to fund it. Like, you know, some hoarders and stuff can live like that, and they're like, I don't know how they get their rent paid and stuff.
Right.
So someone dies in that building, or like, no one's come in or out of that door in 3 decades. He lived in a storage unit. Like, you know, we thought that somebody paid for it and then died, and the family never came for it, and it's just an empty apartment. We've never heard anything. Like, and then it's like it's full of shit.
Wow.
You know, but he had the money to keep it going. So I don't know. It's an interesting story because he was really brushes of fame and like who will marry him, that kind of thing. Like, oh, will she be the lucky one that snacks him forever? Tabloid fodder, and then he became just like this.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that sounds intense.
Yeah. Anyway, well, hopefully there's enough food for thought here. I don't know if you want to just focus on. I think focusing on just starting maybe with like, so one day you just decide to reject the so-called luxurious lifestyle that has been placed before you. You're just disgusted. Like, tell me about that day. Tell me about those days. Like, what became normal for you, and what do you think that was in retrospect? Was that a dark night of the soul? Was that you know, is there some other name you give it? Is there teachings that you look back and think, oh, that really applied? And music is an outlet. Like, what's the lesson for other people? Like, find a way to not judge. I mean, it sounds like it wasn't, oh, I decided to pick up an instrument and I wrote all these little ditties, and it was more about not self-censoring and like consciousness, like self-acceptance at least for that fraction of time was like just letting anything come out. Like, is there a teaching about that? Is there, what could people take from that in their day-to-day lives about?
That's great. Yeah, I can sit with that.
As a tool away from the dark corners. maybe there's something in that.
Yeah, I like that. I can sit with that. Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. And I also want to encourage both of us, but you specifically, to find what you think is because I can always ramble on, but I think you can, yeah.
Is this feedback based on former episodes, or is this just a thought?
It's more like, I actually think you have the better ability to know what the story is. Given now you have tons of stories, tons of ways we can go about it. I think I would look more to you. I would trust if you were willing to say, okay, I know that this is interesting, but I actually only want to talk about these 5 things, 5 parts, and not this part, which I'd be perfectly fine with. I don't feel like there's some, and if I did feel like that, I'd bring it up. I don't feel like there's some, I really have to talk about this part. It's really important. But I think you have more of the feel for like what would be useful for others.
I mean, the whole story is so fascinating, but I think not getting into total specifics about like the music art, like how close you came to actually doing that is interesting. But then I also think, well, it was kind of a non-starter. Like if you're mentally already checked out, like maybe you don't have to get into like that whole game, because that could be a weird way of like just playing along in your own life, or like that seems like it could be another episode almost. Like, what was driving you to even pretend when you could have been a recluse for so long? Why were you suddenly like, yeah, I'll go to the producer's studio? Like it just seems such a, even if in your mind you're like, I'm not doing this. But like I'm just surprised that you still resisting, but you weren't. But you were participating, which is very confusing. Refused to participate. So like it's an interesting dynamic there. But I almost feel like that could be, you get lost in the weeds. So I think focusing on the dark moments and like how darkness materializes, like having a concrete example or two from your life, and then teachings around that could apply to anybody. It was nice to hear someone's personal story, but it's also nice to hear like successful ways. And we can also make sure that we're not saying depression is curable by learning some audio software and like riffing for hours. I think calling it being lost and found, like finding oneself, dissatisfaction, like these kind of disillusions.
I like that.
Sometimes feel like more universal because depression comes with a lot of weight.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so lost in the world. Yeah, something like this. Yeah.
Oh, am I frozen?
Yes, but I can hear you.
Sorry, I froze. There's also something in there about appearances and disappearances.
Say more.
Disappearances. I just want to say it. It's deep, Christian. It's real deep.
Interesting. I wonder what you mean by that. Interesting.
I mean, you were appearing, I'm talking about the part where I said we're not going to talk about it, but you're appearing to talk about contracts.
Right.
But you're actually in the middle of a disappearing act.
Right. Yes.
One foot out the door, and you said it was a six month kind of process of renouncing. It's not just like, I'm going to move out tomorrow. It's like, I'm renouncing all belongings. Like you're disappearing from that identity while you're still in it. Michael Jackson's studio. Like it's like this very strange appearances and disappearances were simultaneous for you.
Yeah, that's a fascinating topic that we could riff on. I think we should do a future one. I really like that.
Your suit becoming a wash rag. But
Right.
at least it finally saw soap, Christian.
Right. Yeah, true.
Give it a good sense. Like, that's also appearances and disappearances. That suit became
right.
like a burden. Like, it was an image that you didn't want to have, so you wouldn't even leave the room because you're like, I don't want to put that thing on.
Right.
Like, it still looks like a $2,000 suit. You get used to it, and it's stinky, and it's got stains on it.
Right.
You're not going to send it out to dry cleaning.
Right, no.
Bars over here. I don't have to do that. And if it's clean, that means I have to wear it. So you just have this stinky thing that might as well be a rag. It becomes a rag. Like, it disappears itself into the rag again. Like, there's appearances and disappearances.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. The last thing I'll say about that is that for now, and I think we should definitely visit that, is one of the first Zen patriarchs said, he said people, he talked about fasting, praying, and something else, but he says, you can fast, you can stop eating, but you're not fasting. So fasting, you could be not eating and not fasting. And he said, fasting is mental, completely mental. Fasting is completely renouncing in the mind. You could be eating, you could be out partying with people and completely renounce. So it's and then he talked about praying. People think, oh, I need to prostrate, and they go and pray. And they do this empty act of praying. But they're not mentally there. And he kept saying that appearances, don't believe them because they're empty. You don't know. Everything requires the second question. That's what I've been saying recently. It's like the second question. Because people go, oh, explain the situation to me. Oh, he grew up like that? That must have been terrible. But you didn't ask the second question. What was my mental experience of that, right? Like that. It seems that the situation explains itself. The guy fell off the bridge and got himself back up or whatever. No, that must have been horrible. But he's smiling and laughing like, okay, his mental experience was. So that second question is the same thing in this situation. He's appearing to go to all these things. We really have to ask, what was he actually experiencing, and what was he projecting onto that suit, when he first got it compared to when it became a rag. And like, oh, how could this suit become a rag? And it was this great moment of it transforming into a great, not a very useful rag, I will say. Not as flexible.
Water resistant.
Right.
Probably got a lot of starch in it. You're like, I can't get in the corner because the collar was so crisp. Right. And you're like, God damn, we need to go, boss.
Coffee. All right, Katie.
Okay.